In Genesis chapter 49, Jacob urgently sought to complete two most important pieces of business with his life. Mostly these were to do with his 12 sons, and that is before he died, or before he dies, or according to the saying of these days, before he kicks the bucket. First, he wished to give a prophetic message appropriate to each of his sons. Now, while these, as we're going to study, are titled as blessings, all are actually not positive. In fact, are presented more as predictions than bestowing favors. Now, secondly, he wants to command them, that is his sons, to bury his body not here in Egypt, but rather that he may be taken back in Canaan to the family tomb, which earlier on had been purchased by his daddy or grandfather Abraham, down there in Machpelah. Now, the predictions given here are in a style often termed as a prophetic oracle. Using poetic language and metaphors, Jacob revealed a small part of the future of each of his sons. And I mean his sons and his sons' descendants, that is his descendants, which became, of course, eventually the tribes of Israel. This oracle served many purposes for the people of Israel. In fact, during the centuries of slavery in Egypt, that is in Exodus chapters 1, verses 7 to 14, Jacob's deathbed oracle pointed to the future when they take possession of the promised land of Canaan. Afterwards, it served as a reminder. God's plan has been in place since the beginning of time, and he is faithful to bless his people. That's without a doubt. Jacob here fathered about 12 sons, mostly from 4 different women. His 2 wives, that is official wives, were Leah and Rachel, and then he also had 2 servant wives, that is Bilhah and Zilpah. In this passage, or in this chapter that we're going to study today, only the first 4 and the last 2 sons are addressed in the exact accordance with their birth order. However, there is still an arrangement of Jacob's speech. The first 6 sons that were addressed, as we're going to study further, were Reuben, and then we had Simeon, and then we had Levi, and then we had Judah, who was the 4th born son, and then we had Zebulun and Issachar, and these are naturally born sons of Jacob's first wife, that was Leah. And then the next 4, there we had Dan, we had Gad, we had Asher, and then Naphtali. These are the sons that were carried through surrogacy by Rachel and Leah's servants. Now the last 2, that is I and Benjamin, are the naturally born sons of Jacob's dearest and most beloved wife, Rachel. Now the first 3 predictions, from Jacob, as you read them, they seem to be a little bit harsh, in a sense that he sort of holds Reuben, Simeon, and Levi accountable for the sins that were committed, decades earlier. The tribes descendant from them were actually less esteemed as a result of these blessings, or, in quotes, curses. In fact, Reuben was valued for sleeping with his father's concubine, in Genesis chapter 35, specifically verses 22. You can pick up on episode 35 if you haven't already watched it. Now, this causes him to lose his esteemed position as the firstborn, and his tribe was actually noted for indecisiveness. Remember, Reuben was the firstborn, so literally, or naturally, or by default, he should have obtained the firstborn son blessings. He should also have obtained the double blessings, which were always a privilege to the firstborns. Now, next to Reuben, we had Simeon and Levi. These were closely linked in their violent, vengeful, and personalities, for which they both were actually condemned. The most notable evidence of this was their deceptive and sadistic response to the rape of their sister Dinah in Genesis chapter 34, verses 1 and 13 to 15, then 25 to 19. Please again pick up our episode 34 if you haven't watched it online. Now, neither of these tribes posed much of the promised land actually. Because as we're going to be studying further, we'll find that the tribe of Levi became actually priests with no established territory of their own. That's why we will find guys like Moses, and then we also had Aaron, who became the high priest eventually. In contrast, the fourth-born son, that is Judah, with the blessings that were bestowed upon him, he actually became the greatest tribe here in Israel. Now, this fourth son, that is the fourth son of Jacob, that is Judah, he became the essence of the most of Israel's kings and actual rulers. In fact, the kingship will remain with Judah forever, as one of the blessings is going to say that. Much later in history, Jesus, that is the Messiah, he himself, he actually descended from the family of Judah, including David, the King David, very popular in the Bible. And as we're going to be seeing also, he came from the family of Judah. And Judah, of course, through David, he was known as the Lion of Judah. Now, part of Jacob's predictions was a prophecy about the Messiah and the everlasting nature of his rule. We'll study that in verses 8 to verse 12. Now, part of Jacob's predictions are, 8 to 12. Now, brief mentions are made of the future of the tribes of Zebulun. And Zebulun, we had Issachar, and then we had Dan, then we had Gad, and then we had Asher, and then we had Naphtali. Now, Zebulun himself was associated in some way with some sort of sea trading, pirate kind of business, but mostly he dealt, most of his business was dealt on the sea. Then Issachar was known for hard work and possibly enslavement. Dan, on the other hand, was cryptically described as lurking serpent, possibly a reference to military skill. He was a fighter. Then the oracle about Gad uses rhyming Hebrew words to imply conflict. Asher's prediction were mostly involved around food. And Naphtali, he was associated with independence and beauty. Now, in the middle of these prophecies, Jacob sort of exclaimed his desire to see God's salvation. And Jacob, eventually, he saved his greatest blessings for, Joseph and the people that were to come from I. Having already given the family blessing to Joseph's two sons. Remember earlier on we studied how he actually officially adopted that is Joseph's two sons, as Manasseh and Ephraim. Now Jacob he sort of includes Joseph specifically in these blessings. He continues and he says that his people, that is Joseph's people, will be fruitful, and they will fight off their attackers in the strength of the mighty one of Jacob. Now, notable Old Testament warriors, such as Joshua. We had another one called Gideon, and then we had another called Deborah, will be from the tribes of Ephraim and Manasseh. Further on, the material blessings of the earth will come to them. Indeed, they did. And we'll see that as we move along in the future as they take over the promised land. Now, the final predictions is Jacob's youngest son, my brother, Benjamin. His people are compared to vicious, predators, and of course, voracious. And history will tell us that the Benjamites were actually known for their military accomplishments. Boy, these niggers were tough when it came to military. They would also be associated with a horrific incident in Judges chapter 19, verses 25 to 27, which sort of sparked a civil war. And we'll find that civil war in Judges 20, or you can read ahead of time to find more details about that civil war. Now, the first king of Israel, who can tell me who that was? Yeah, that was Saul. Saul was from this very tribe, from Benjamin. and his rule was marked by a predatory and violent streak. After the extensive praise that was given to Joseph, this brief remark seems to, anticlimactic in a way, if you come to think about it. But nonetheless, in the moments before Jacob died, he urgently commanded his sons not to bury him in Egypt, but rather that he may be taken back there in the promised land in Canaan, near Mamre. There was a cave there that had been built by Abraham earlier on. The cave, it's this cave is one of the few spots in Canaan owned outright by God's people. This was paid for, so they actually had a deed for that cave. That's where Abraham was buried. Abraham bought this when he lost his beloved wife Sarai, and he didn't want to take her back to Babylon, so he decided to pay for it. I think he paid about 400 shekels, about 400 pieces of silver, and down there in Machpelah, or near Machpelah. Anyhow, he requested, he actually commanded his sons to, take him back and into the promised land and be buried next or alongside his dad, that is Isaac and, Abraham. With this finished business, Jacob unfortunately died in verses 33. That's it basically. That's the summary of Genesis chapter 49. Please don't forget to watch the full episode on our website or on our YouTube channel. You could simply scan the QR code that is on your screen if you're watching this online. It will take you direct to our website where you can watch this full episode. Or if you could go to YouTube, simply search for the handle Abdi Ministries. You could also find us on Spotify and the different social media platforms that includes TikTok and Facebook. Amen. Amen.